Hi, it is that time of the semester when we are starting to draft our first essay. And I think over the years, I've noticed how many writers get frustrated with how to move the process along and being unsatisfied with where they are in the process of writing. So I wanted to share some advice that I've gathered over the years on drafting. Most of what we'll be talking about today is pulled from Anne Lamott's book Bird by Bird. And I just love her. I love her idea that almost all good writing begins with terrible first efforts. I like to think of drafting as having four phases, at least that many. And I think the main thing to keep in mind is the division between creating and editing. So I've Anne Lamott starts talking about drafting in the process of free writing, and I've added on an earlier phase, brainstorming, which I called wild creativity. So brainstorming, you've already done some this semester. I urge you to try one of these strategies from UNC at Chapel Hill. They've got lots of different ways of, of putting together a brainstorm that I've never seen before. Very cool stuff. I want to note that brainstorming and free writing are often presented as the same thing, but I encourage you to try a brainstorming strategy where you don't create sentences, since that can tempt you to edit. And that's typically what happens in free writing, is that students start out really open and going for it, and then they begin to edit and worry. You want to remember, creating and editing usually happen in different parts of your brain, and they often don't mix well. So um, if you feel like you're, uh, editing, questioning, critiquing as you're doing your brainstorm, then you're actually editing and probably switching back and forth between those parts of your brain. So the more you can trick your brain into just creating and having fun, the more great material you'll come up with to work with on your paper. The downdraft. So this is what Anne Lamott calls, kind of focused free writing, I think is how you would name it. She says almost all good writing begins with terrible first efforts. You need to start somewhere. Start by getting something, anything down on paper. A friend of mine says that the first draft is the downdraft. You just get it down. And she goes on to say that, shitty first drafts happen. All good writers have them, and it's how you get to the good second draft and the terrific third draft. So, pardon my language, but I think it fits. I've definitely had one of those, and she wants to let us know that in her experience, professional writers don't write elegant first drafts. You just have to start at the beginning. She also calls the downdraft the child's draft, which is an image I really like. It's when you let the kid out and there are no rules. They can just kind of fall all over themselves, get muddy, have fun, be inappropriate, and without any rules. And that's what kids are supposed to do. That's what a draft is supposed to do. So, like, I guess, like dealing with a messy, dirty kid at the playground, it's sometimes painful, as Lamott admits that. And sometimes in her writing, she feels like all these inner critics are coming at her, and she worries that somebody is going to find her early draft before she has a chance to fix it. The next draft she calls the updraft, and that's where you fix it up. You try to say what you have to say more accurately. This is the point where you're looking at all of this material you've generated and you're starting to pick apart like what fits your thesis idea, what doesn't. You start breaking your ideas into paragraphs. You begin placing and integrating your source material. Start choosing more specific and interesting language. It's when you might think, maybe you've been thinking, but you start to create an introduction and conclusion and that framing idea of your paper. And starting to double check that, you're doing the nuts and bolts, you're fulfilling the requirements of the assignment, you're spell checking, correcting the big things. So typically, I find that a lot of students, they've already done this kind of sorting by the time they even start writing, because they like to do an outline as part of their brainstorming. And outlining is actually not brainstorming. It's an organizational technique and it can be a great way to get started, but it's that editing, critiquing part of your mind, which isn't the true creative side. So if you like starting with an outline, there's nothing wrong with that, but give this a try where you just go wild first and then start organizing it partway through. The third draft, Lamont calls the dental draft. That's where she says, check every tooth to see if it's loose or cramped or decayed or even, God help us, healthy. So this is when you get into the proofreading and the polishing of the fine details. And this is very much an ongoing process. And it's really beneficial if you can come back to proofreading and that fine editing of your paper in multiple sessions with a break in between so that you have a fresh eye. You want to take the time to consider and integrate the advice you'll get from others, which I find is a separate step all to its own, because it can be a really hard process to look at what other people have to say about your writing and sort through what you want to keep and what you want to ignore. I want to emphasize the idea that drafting isn't a straight line. And if you're stuck, sometimes the best thing to do is to circle back to an earlier phase, try some brainstorming, try free writing again. It may feel awkward to go back to the beginning when you've come so far and things are finally coming together for you, but give it a try. Also, if you're suffering from writer's block, I think it can be a great idea to set a timer. I like to write or work for a set amount of time and then take another timed break to give myself a breather. If you're an artist, take 10 minutes, maybe create an illustration for your essay or pick out a song on your guitar that seems to be a soundtrack for the essay. Anything to kind of come at the assignment in a new way. You can also try a different mode. I think the most obvious one is to switch from using a computer to handwriting, but talking to somebody about the assignment, even if they don't understand the assignment, can be a great strategy for understanding it better. One that I've started to use more and more is using the voice to text feature on my device, because you can generate so much material so quickly if you're just speaking. Also, this is particularly good when I'm stuck, I go for a walk and think about the assignment that I'm working on, the project, and I record a voice memo of ideas. If you're a kinesthetic learner and you like to work with your hands, sports make a lot of sense to you, you like working with models, sometimes just going for a walk is enough movement to get ideas moving for you. I did it for this project actually, when I was trying to figure out how to put this little lecture together, and I came up with a lot in a 20-minute walk. The other thing you can do is try a different setting, move to another room, turn the music or the TV on or off if you can. Sometimes for me, just even moving to a different chair can give me a new perspective. In the end, writing isn't magic. I think when I went to college, I really thought it was, and I was pretty disappointed to find out that I didn't have the magical skills to get it on the first try. So I think it really pays to remember that writing is a skill. And so you're going to get better as you practice and as you get feedback and as you learn more about all these academic traditions we're working with. Learning a skill takes some patience and it takes some diligence. And those two things will help you out a lot this semester. Because writing's a skill, we allow revisions in this class. If you don't get it the first time, you can come back to it and try it again. It's a process. So your job is to do your best that you can this semester. I have no idea why this is happening to my screen, but this is already the second draft of this, and we're almost done. So do your best, complete essays on time so you can get feedback and just keep moving forward. Good luck.